Hey everyone, it's Michelle Dawson, Nurse Deb from Halloween Ends. You are turning into Cineifier. You can follow me on Instagram at It's Michelle Dawson. Let's sit down by the fire and chat.
Why, hello, everybody. This is Eric Vornoff, host of the Cineifier podcast, where the horror lives and you survive. I'm here with my next special guest. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, how y'all doing? My name is Kenneth Appleton. I'm a filmmaker and I'm also a artist. Got a lot of projects in the works. Got a film I'm working on. I also have a single that I just released, and I have an album coming out next year. So definitely, 2026 is going to be a really busy, prosperous year. I'm really excited about it. So yeah, definitely glad I was able to come back and be able to sit down and chat with Eric here. So, but that's pretty much what I got going on right now.
But yeah, thank you for sharing that, and I also want to thank you for taking time out of your day to be here.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and so yeah, well, with all these projects you have coming up in 2026, how about that you share my audience about what exactly are these projects?
Well, I have a single that's currently out. It's available on all streaming platforms. I have a card for it. Let me just show you right here. The song's called Danger Zone. It's available on all platforms. It's gonna be the first single off my album. And also I put the video on the same day. It's on YouTube right now. And I'm definitely gonna make sure I send you the links to the ways they can be able to pick it up online and ways to be able to watch the video. So that's definitely one of the things I'm really excited about. One thing I do when I'm going out and about, I can be on different sites for other movies and TV shows, and what I do is I just kind of just network and talk to people, and I feel like I'm really vibing with you, and I give them a card, and then they get you. And a lot of people have been giving me great feedback. They say they really like the song. I think it's got potential. So really excited to see where that goes. And I always say, I'm just going to take it one day at a time. And I'm glad I'm getting the feedback, because to me, I'm my own worst critic. It's like when I listen to it back, I often feel like I could have done things better. But it's one of those things where it's like you just let it. You just got to let go and let God. Because real quick, I just want to say, perfectionism is the enemy of progress. Just anytime you create a project, whatever it is, ask yourself these three questions. Did you work really hard on the project? Is the answer yes? Did you ever half-ass it? Is the answer no? And number three, do you feel like you created the best product possible? Is the answer yes? Put it out.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say that. Yeah, and I would say that that's a really good perspective to have about it. And as far as the whole thing about being your own worst critic, I mean, I've had that experience a lot. I mean, especially after going back and watching some of the movies that I was in. And I mean, of course, I am definitely glad that I got to have those opportunities, but it's just, I feel like that a lot of people will relate to this. It's just as soon as they hear their own voice, that they just kind of cringe at it. Excuse me. And yeah, they cringe at it, and and they're just too critical about it. And so yeah, I totally understand about being your own worst critic. And then when you go around mentioning it to all these other people, they and then don't share that assessment about it. And so then sometimes. So yeah, it just goes to show that sometimes that we can be a little bit too hard on ourselves.
And one thing I always say that always makes me kind of feel better, because I always say it can happen. If it can happen to all these other artists, it can happen to me. If it can happen to any other filmmaker, it can happen to you. Is that when you create your product, you put it out there, even though you may not like the way it sounds. If the single sells 1 million copies, are you gonna complain about it? Nope, exactly. I'll take it. The best thing I would say is that as long as, for anybody, when it comes to the art they create, as long as they're genuinely being themselves when it comes to their art, whether it's their music, their films, any form of art, even though you might criticize yourself about it, but as long as you're being yourself, believe me, the rest will follow. So it's like, even though like people are getting good feedback about it, and knowing that people are liking the record, that I wrote it, I produced it, I arranged it, it's from the heart. It's my first ever single releasing, and I'm going to put out something that's really from the heart. And I feel like that's what we have to do in order to be able to create art. Yeah, any true art has to be from the heart.
Yeah, because if it's not going to come from your heart, well, and then there's really no point for you to do it in the first place.
Right. Because that's one of my goals. Like I said, I think I might have said this in the last interview, but one of my goals is to create a masterpiece when it comes to music and films, because I hope to be able to create several. I mean, I'm not saying that every single film I create, or movie, or a TV show, or album, or song that I create is going to be, but as long as you try to create something, at the very least, is good. But these are what I consider to be 4 keys to making a masterpiece. Like no matter what it is, I say number 1, it can't be nothing short of a classic, meaning that it can go all the time, and you can stop what you're doing, you can watch it, no matter what part of it is. It could be like at the very beginning, towards the very end, right in the middle. You can still continue watching. That's number 1. Number 2 is it's very few. There's nothing in life really is ever perfect, but it's gotta be one of those works of art that's damn near close. You gotta really dig deep in order to find those loose ends. Number 3, it's gotta be something original about your work of art, something that separates it from other works of art that were being released at the time. And number 4, and like I just said, it's gotta be from the heart. But those are my opinion, my keys to making a masterpiece. As far as like I said, films that I love, that I would be a masterpiece, I would say is The Fugitive. I would say one of the recent, if you get a chance, The Shape of Water. I thought that was a great film. I would say, The Truman Show, Jim Carrey.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was one of my favorites. And the one that I used to love watching growing up is, I think just now it's starting to gain a following. Count of Monte Cristo, which is the 2002 version. But yeah, those are just a few. And like as far as superhero, I would say Dark Knight, Black Panther, like films, like I said, like not perfect, but most things are really near close. But those are what I would definitely put those films in like time capsule for future generations to see.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Count of Monte Cristo, didn't that have like a much younger, what was his name who played Superman in the...
Henry Cavill? Yes.
Yeah.
That was him. That was his early roles. And I think that, interesting enough, when I watch, like, sometimes I like watching like movie reactions online, where it's like, their channels where they're watching the movies for the first time, and when they see him in the film and realize that's actually him, I'm like, yeah, that was Henry Cavill. That was one of his early ones.
Yeah, and and knowing that was before he was Superman, he was a lot younger, and then to look back on it and to see him at a much younger age, it's like, of course, we all do understand that aging is just a part of life, but I mean, it can be weird when you're so used to seeing a particular person at a certain age, and then you see them at either a younger age or an older age. It's just kind of weird.
But you know what? That's actually a good thing as well, because I believe that he's probably received more residuals from his early work since he became Superman. Because once an actor gets that role of a lifetime, or it's that role that helps their career really take off, you go back to everything that they've done before. So even though you said there's certain films you might look back on that you kind of look sideways about, but here's the thing: all it takes is that one role. Once that one role and you're out, you're gonna look back at all the other stuff that you've done. So it's gonna be like, oh wow, this guy's been grinding for a while. And as I say it all the time, it takes 10 years to become an overnight celebrity.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that you definitely have to work for. And I mean, I'll say this about Henry, and I even will say this about about you pursuing your pursuits with music and with film. Nobody's gonna believe in you until you believe in yourself.
Right. Yeah. So that's definitely one thing I try to be mindful of, and that's one thing and that's why it's where it's I had to get to a point where it's like, you know what, as much as I feel like it could be better, as many times as I've redone this record and I feel like it could be, and I feel like I could still improve on it, it just got to a point where I'm just like, no, you gotta, because in my opinion, I realize I'm lacking self confidence. It's like you got to be confident in yourself, and that you can create a hit record. And I decided to play it back a few times, and I even played it to people before I released it. They all say it. It sounds like good quality. It sounds decent. I'm like I say, you don't know it's going to be a hit. And like I always say, nobody knows they got a hit until it hits. You might have a dope record, but you don't know if it's going to be a hit, because there are so many songs that I love that were singles, but for some reason they never took off. I mean, it is what it is. But my point being is that you're not going to know unless you just put it out there. And not only that, I have friends who know people who live in other cities, and they can probably be able to help break the record as well. But like I say, you just, even though it's like, I'm as best as I can, you also got to be able to, like I said, you got to be able to rely on other people and believe that they can kind of see your vision, and they can be able to help the record take off and all that.
Yeah, and one of the good things about with the advent of the internet, it actually has made getting your content found a lot easier. Like with the advent of YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok especially, and Spotify. I mean, it really has made it a lot easier. Is because that, from what I've heard of how people did it back then, before before all of that really became popular, people would, at that time, they would have to go either move to LA or someplace, and they would have to just sell CDs on the sidewalk, and then just hoping that somebody would find it, and hoping that the right person would find it. And from what I understand, Afroman was kind of at that time where it was in between, selling CDs, and also when the internet started to get big. And then he sold one of his CDs to somebody, and he sold it to just the right person, and then they uploaded it to Napster. And I do know that Napster isn't really around anymore, as far as what I understand. But then when his songs got uploaded to Napster, and then started to gain traction, and I really do think that one of the reasons why Aquaman got big is, is because there's not really a whole lot of rappers that I can think of, like, who make their songs a little bit more humorous. And then I feel like that really helped him, like, as far as all of his competitors go, is that they probably were being more serious with their rap songs. And while Afroman had more of that comedic edge to him, which I feel like, helped him. And matter of fact, I know it may not have to do with rap, but I believe that's how Justin Bieber got found. Like, he just uploaded a video up on his YouTube channel, and then Usher, out of all people, found him, and yeah.
Yeah, and actually, that's one of those things where I feel I can also help with my music, is that you want to make sure your music comes out a little bit more original. Like, what separates it from, like I said, what separates it from other artists and their music and whatnot. And you said the fact that he was funny, and I feel like that's a good thing. And that's one thing I try to be mindful of myself as an artist, is that, and it's not even just artists. I feel like people in general. You ever meet somebody and just say to yourselves, that guy or that girl just take themselves way too seriously? That's one thing I'm trying to be mindful of. I'm trying not to make sure I take myself too seriously. I mean, you gotta take yourself seriously because it's your life, but not too seriously, where it's like you to the point like you need to relax. But that's one thing I am mindful of. And I think about artists that, when they first came out, like, so many examples, and so many artists that that I loved when they came out, and I felt like a lot of them what separated them and what made them different than their, I guess you can say, competitors is like, I would say what separated some of them is just that their content or also their structure, because there were certain boy bands that when they came out were different than certain other boy bands, and that is certain things what I'm thinking about doing too. Is that my plan is like when I release this album, I definitely want to, I want to see how far it goes. I guess I don't, you never know where things are going to go, but I hope to take it as far as I can. And my plan is probably to release 3 albums. Not saying I would never put out an album again. I just want to probably do 3 albums for my initial run, and after that, I want to focus more on producing and songwriting and signing artists. Cause I did just start my record label, Timeless Records. So I'm just taking it one day at a time when it comes to just finding talent, I guess, because I don't want to just necessarily sign too many artists all at once. So when I do start, want to sign somebody and whatnot, I would probably just be one artist at a time, and just after that, try to make sure when I come to other artists, make sure that they have something different. Like maybe I might sign a male rapper, and I'm sign a female rapper. I might sign a male R&B artist, a female R&B artist. Sign a boy band, and sign a girl group. Like I said, the list goes on. But like I said, I want to make sure I just just pace myself. I realize one thing I used to do. I felt like I really realized was a problem. Was I had a lot of products, and I was juggling too many of them at the time, and I realized that doing so, I just was overwhelming myself, and the products weren't even going all that well. So that's why I learned to just pace myself and just try to focus on one, maybe 2 at a time.
Yeah, and one of the things that you will have to keep in mind is that trends change, and that I know that this may be hard for a lot of people to accept. It's because people get really passionate about music, people get really passionate about films, but we have to remember at the end of the day, it's not show hobby, it's show business, and part of being a part of business means that you have to keep up with the times, because if you don't keep up with the current trends, well, then you are more bound to fail. And so, boy bands tend to come and go, but also what I've also noticed is that there also will bands who will kind of change their tune just so in that way that they can keep up with the current trends, such as Korn. Back when dubstep got really, really popular at around 2011, I believe it was, they actually started to have some dubstep into their music. I know that did get mixed reception, but ultimately at the end of the day, they were just trying to keep up with the times.
And that's actually one thing. That's actually one of my favorite sayings that I'd be telling everybody when it comes to anything to do. It's like when it comes to trends, I said you gotta change with the times, because if you don't change with the times, you're gonna be lost in time. So yeah, for instance, I remember. I'm old enough to remember how big MySpace was, but obviously see that kind of, I'm not gonna say came and went. It lasted for a few years, but I think that Facebook got so popular that I feel like MySpace just became a thing of the past. And not only just that, it's also another thing I think of is that you have at some point every artist has a run. Some are in it for the short run, others are in it for the long run. Now, obviously, when you get to a certain level of celebrity, like I always say, there's 3 levels to celebrity that I consider. I consider stars, superstars, and megastars. Like a star is somebody who's famous, but they're not a household name, and you kind of have to be familiar with their work to know who they are. A superstar is a household name, but they're not necessarily bigger than the genre, meaning majority of people know who they are, but they're not bigger than the genre. A megastar is beyond a household name. They are bigger than the genre. Everyone knows who they are. you be living under a rock to not know who they are. Better yet, you be living like underground to not know who they are. Like I said, artists who are in it for the long run, obviously. Beyonce, megastar. Everyone knows who she is. Be living under a rock to not know. It's like no matter what she does, it's like when you get to that level, like no matter what happens to her, no matter what she does, she's always going to be relevant. People are going to always go to her shows. People always purchase her music. So even though I would love to get to that part, I mean, I would be just fine being a superstar. But for me, my point is that when your run is going and you realize your run is coming to an end, you got to be able to pivot. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to focus on 3 albums and afterwards like focus on finding talent, because that way I want to be able to, be my own boss, be able to run my own record label and also be able to make dreams come true for other people, because I feel like that's also one thing I'm trying to do is that I'm trying to push culture forward. You see, I feel like one of the main problems today is that we're afraid to move forward as a culture, because there are certain artists who, like, take the Beatles. The Beatles, like I said, megastars at their heyday. Living under a rock to not know who they are, sold billions, not millions. They sold billions. But the thing about it is, today people are so afraid to. They're so afraid to move forward in culture that they're saying we shouldn't try to strive to be the Beatles or strive to be better than the Beatles. I'm like, the people too content with being where they are. I'm like, you should never be content. You should always be trying to push further and whatnot. I mean, I want to be able to do better than the past generation. And I would hope for future generations to have that same mindset. I want the future generations to do better than what I've done. And for me, that's all I was saying is like, instead of saying let's not try to touch the Beatles, like no, we should strive to be the Beatles. Better yet, strive to do better than what they did. So for me, that is just me. That's just my mindset, because I always say this. I remember when Matthew McConaughey took home his Oscar, he said there were 3 things he needs in his life: someone to look up to, someone to look forward to, someone to chase. He said God is who he looks up to, family is who he looks forward to, and his hero is who he chases. Someone asked him, who's your hero? He said, my hero is me in 10 years. He said 10 years later, that same person came to him. He said, so are you your hero now? He said, not even close. My hero is me in the next 10 years. He said, every second, every minute, every hour, every day, my hero is always 10 years away. I'm never going to be my hero. I'm never going to truly attain that. And that's okay, because that leaves him with somebody to chase. And I think what he basically means is that no matter what I do, no matter how much success I achieve in my life, how much money, how much power, I'm never going to be content with it. I'm always going to be wanting more. And I feel like that's the mindset we should have. We should always want to be able to strive for more and strive to do better in life, period. That's how I want to leave my mark in this world.
Yeah. And I mean, it's all just a part of the journey, just trying to better your craft, try to better yourself each and every day, because of course every artist can definitely relate to this assessment when they look back on their first project, either their first film or their first song. A lot of people will look back on it and cringe at it. I could definitely safely say that about my first film. I look back on it and I go, what was I thinking? But hey, it's all a part of the learning experience. But also, it's one of those things you have to try to find that fine balance with, because, of course, definitely do your best. But at the same time, you also have to be aware that you can't please everybody.
Absolutely. And interestingly enough, I remember like Kendrick Lamar admitted, out of all his albums that he's made, he was asked, is there actually an album that you can actually listen to and you don't critique? And he said, yes, only one. And it was his album, Damn. He said that's out of all his albums, that's the only one he can really listen to and actually vibe with and be able to say, wow, that's me, and he doesn't critique it. Rihanna, she said the same thing about her album, Anti. Like that's the one album she can actually listen to, even though they rarely listen to their music. But if they were to, that's the one album they actually can listen to and not cringe over and actually be able to vibe with. And me personally, I mean, I personally can say that I'll probably get to that point where I'm probably by my third album, because my third album I'll probably be much more relaxed and content, be like, okay, yeah, I know, like I got this. But that's just me. That's where I see myself right now.
Yeah, exactly. Just gotta take it one step at a time, and and even I can say that about this podcast. When I look back on the original episode, I mean, I've come a long ways as far as the camera quality and just and just the overall production value in general. I mean, it's come a long ways. But I can imagine that you can say the same thing about your journey as well.
Yes, absolutely. So for me, if you, I would say this: if you can actually listen to every single art that you created and not critique it, that means then you're not real. You're not a true artist. Like every artist truly is going to critique their work and be able to see the flaws. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Michael Jackson criticized Thriller, the highest selling album of all time, and he still could probably criticize it. Like that, but guess what? That's okay. You're supposed to be able to, like, you got to be able. I always say that you are going to see yourself differently than the way other people see you. Same thing when it comes to your work of art. And I always tell people all the time, people might like my songs and people say, well, it sounds good, I appreciate it. But remember, it's different when you're the one who makes the music.
Yeah, and now, even though I may not have done the research about if Michael Jackson has done, if he has said that about his own songs or not, but he might have said it, to the public, or if he did, he might have kept it to himself. I mean, we don't really know off the top of our head, but I mean, it's definitely possible. And I mean, heck, according to rumor, again, rumor, take it with a grain of salt. I heard a rumor that apparently Justin Bieber isn't even a fan of his own music. But yeah, and so yeah, and I mean, going back to what we said earlier, that sometimes we can be our very own worst critics.
Yeah, and I would say this. I feel like in regards to Justin Bieber, I could probably see that because I'm pretty sure when he first started out, the music that he was making, he was probably had a big production team, and he probably had certain writers. Because remember, he was about what? I don't know what, 13, 14, 15 years old when he came out. So a 13, 14-year-old, I mean, don't be wrong, there are certain 13, 14, 15-year-olds who start out in that age who are actually very talented musically and were probably able to create certain records and be able to look back and be able to vibe with it. But I'm saying it's probably his later work, he probably was able to get a better rhythm, and he probably was a better when it came to writing and producing. But like I said, there are other artists who started the same age. Like, well, look at Stevie Wonder. Fingertips was his first single, and I think he was about 12 years old when he released that. And he was a blind 12-year-old performing in front of live audiences and whatnot. So, like I said, when you're starting it that young, it's like, how can you really look back as an adult? I'm pretty sure you look back at yourself and be like, that's actually my voice I was singing. So yeah, and like I said, if I put out an album and when I was a teenager, I probably wouldn't like it either. I'd look back at it too, like, what was I thinking?
Oh yeah, certainly so. And so one of my questions, and so was there any particular artist who inspired you to make your own songs?
Yes, I mean, yeah, I'm a big hip hop head, so there are a lot of rappers that I listen to and I vibe with that definitely inspired me when it came to just my first single. For instance, like probably my biggest influence in music and hip hop. The reason why I even turned to hip hop, I would say, is probably Nas. He was definitely one of the artists that I challenged into the single. I would say another rapper who I feel like he doesn't get his just dues, I would say, is Jadakiss. I feel like Jada is definitely one of the greats, one of the unsung. He's one of those artists where I feel like I said you think if he actually got justice, he would be considered one of the top five, dead or alive. But he's like I said, I feel like he just doesn't get his just dues. Probably maybe he's just not the biggest star as like a Nas is. And I would say another one that also was me and probably one of my favorites of the new school is probably J. Cole. I always feel like he was one of my he's also one of my biggest influences as far as the new generation. So, but that's one thing I try to do. I also try to listen to all the younger artists that are out right now. Not even just in hip hop music in general, because I keep up with the times, and also you never know. One day our paths might cross, because I think the one thing that is so fulfilling for an artist to hear is when they meet like one of their idols, even though you're not supposed to have idols, but those artists you look up to, and they tell you, I'm a fan of your music. I mean, I would live for that. I can't wait for that day where an artist comes to me and says, I'm a fan of your music. And I'm going to say, likewise. And, we can just collaborate, and you never know what happens.
Yeah, and since you and I are both artists, it's just such a humbling experience when you have somebody come up to you, and then tell you that I was going through a rough time, either financially or a divorce or work problems or whichever, and then just knowing that your art actually did help them.
And that's the one thing I also think about as well, because when it comes to creating art, we might have a general message that we're trying to send to our, listeners, but sometimes it could be interpreted in a different way. And the one thing I would say is, if a fan comes up to you and tells you like what their interpretation of the song, I feel like you have to let them have that interpretation, because if you tell your fan what the song is really about, then they lose personal connections, and that's something I don't want to ever do to a fan. I want them to have a connection to this record that helps them. I don't want to ruin, I would say, the song for them. And speaking of like personal connections, I remember John Legend. He was asked, what's the greatest thing a fan has ever said about one of your songs? And he said, to this day, his record, Ordinary People, fans tell him all the time that song saved their marriage. Gets it all the time. Now, granted, he's married with children now, but here's the thing: when he created that record, he wasn't married with children, and I don't even think that was the plan, was to be able to help save people's marriages. But he gets it a lot, and he admits, he's amazed, like, wow, my song did that for couples.
Yeah, exactly, and it just pretty much creates a ripple effect. Like where said artist was inspired by somebody else, and then they go do it, and then afterwards they inspire others. And it really truly is just such a beautiful thing to witness about how there's this never-ending cycle like of inspiring people. And a good example is that I actually recall when I actually played the piano at the talent show way back in junior high, and then people told me that I actually inspired them. I'm like, for them to go out and play the piano, and nice. I mean, that never was my intent. I just wanted to do what I wanted to go do, and so with all that said, have you personally have had any positive responses to any of your songs that you have made, such as what I had?
Well, I will say this: like I said, I literally just released the song like about 2 weeks ago, and I'm still heavy at promotion. But like I said, I was on set yesterday. I passed my card around, and a couple of people have played it. And one guy said that he thought it was he said it was really good. I really felt like you were saying something with your music. And I remember another person said the same thing. He said, I didn't know what to expect, because I just thought it could have been some garbage. And he just pointed out like some small little flaws. But he just said overall, I'm like, no, you really got something right here. And like I said, I put the video out. The video, it's still views are just starting to climb up, but I did get my first comment. And my first comment, which kind of makes me feel better, he said, your vocals are insane. But like I said, nothing really big yet. But like I said, I got all the time in the world. I mean, as much as we talk about how there are certain movies that didn't get their just dues and they're just now starting to gain a cult following. Like I said, we talked about The Count of Monte Cristo and with Henry Cavill. Like that movie, like I saw that movie in theaters with my mother when it came out in 2002. And we loved it back then. But here's the thing, people are just now catching on to it and it's just now starting to gain a cult following. I say the same thing when it comes to songs. There's certain songs that when they're first initially released, they don't get their just dues, but as time goes on, they gain a cult following. And I'm perfectly fine with that. It's like, you always tell everybody, you can't tell people we can't tell the universe when a song is going to be impactful. And you also can't tell listeners how to interpret your music. You have to just put it out there and just let them come up with their own interpretations of what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, life is full of surprises and heck, and I mean, when you take those chances, all of those rewards on the other side, they are incredible.
Yeah, and I will say this. I remember watching an interview David Banner did recently, and the one thing he said, and it made me think about, music as a whole, because here's one thing I tell people all the time. We don't know sometimes we as artists don't realize how powerful music really is. And there are certain people who we've lost and that have gained such a huge following in their deaths. And the one thing David Banner said that I believe that I actually agree with, he said, there's only a select few artists that he's worked with that truly know who they are. Because he said he doesn't think Tupac really knew he was Tupac. He doesn't think Nipsey really knew he was Nipsey. And I agree. And I think what he means is that, I mean, I'm pretty sure those guys knew they were going to have an impact when they left this world, but I don't believe that they knew how big. I don't think that they knew that they would have this big of an impact many years later. But like I said, David Banner said this. He said, there are a couple artists that he worked with who really know who they are. He said, T.I. really knows he's T.I. Chris Brown really knows he's Chris Brown, meaning that they know how big they are right now, but he said they know how much bigger they're going to be when they leave this world. And I believe it.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, people have various views on what is the meaning of life. And I by no means claim to have all of the answers. It's because it's definitely a very nuanced topic that honestly that I truly don't believe that everybody ever truly will have all the answers to be figured out. But what I can safely and confidently say, what I do feel like is a part of that equation, is that a big part of the meaning of life, well, at least to me, at least, and I do feel confident that you probably will concur with this, is that it's what do you leave behind?
Yes, and I feel like that's one thing I'm trying to do is like when it comes to legacy. Like legacy is what you leave behind. And like I said, I'm gonna say it right now. The same thing when I just said that when David Banner said that only select few artists know who they are, I'm gonna say it. I really don't know. Like I said, my stage name, I'm LK, but like I said, I don't know what's going to really happen, like where my career is going to go and what's going to happen when I leave this world. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, but like I said, I hope to be remembered, but I always tell people all this all the time. Anytime, like I said, I had to bury a friend a few months back. It's been a hard few months, miss them like crazy, but the one thing I will say is that when we lose those we love, like, while none of us knows for sure what happens next, even though I'm going to say it, I do believe there is life after this. But as far as when someone leaves this world, what happens to everybody around them? It's simple. We grieve and mourn, but eventually, but then after that, we got to move forward. It's like we celebrate them on their birthday, we celebrate them on their death day, but other than that, there's nothing else we can really do but just to keep moving forward. So even though, like I said, we don't know like I said, while nobody knows what's happening next, but I believe that everything what I just said about how it affects everybody around us, that's how it is for, I feel like, for everybody, even though we all deal with death in different ways, but we got to still, like I said, keep moving forward. Like I said, we honor them on the day we lost them, we honor them on their birthday, but other than that, there is nothing else to do.
Yeah, and what a lot of people need to realize is that yes, it is okay to grieve, but yet it also is okay to learn from the experience. It also is okay to grow from it. And moving on, it does not mean that you forget about that person. Moving on means that you continue to live your life, in a positive way, not just for you, but you are doing it in their memory, since that, of course, if said person in your life truly loved you, if they truly cared about you, they would want you to be happy. I mean, of course, they definitely will comprehend that, yes, that you are sad that they're gone. And yeah, and I mean, all of us are going to experience loss in more ways than one, but it reminds me of a quote. Life is mostly what happens to you, and the rest is how you respond to it.
I'm gonna remember that one, because I always tell people all the time. It's similar to the quote. You can't control everything that happens, but you can always control how you react.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, because life ain't always going to be fair. I mean, as you and I talked before this recording, I mean, setbacks happen in more ways than one, and life can be cruel at times. But reminds me of a quote from, I believe, Rocky Balboa, which was the sixth of those films. But yeah, it's not only one of the greatest movie quotes of all time, it's one of the greatest life quotes of all time. Is that it's not about how hard you get hit, but how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
Yeah, how much you're willing to take to keep moving forward. Like that's one of my favorite monologues right there too. It's like that's how winning is done. And one thing that I will say about about certain things that we deal with in regards to moving forward is that similar to what Rocky said about how is that life's not always fair. Well, here's the one thing I remember. Denzel Washington, it's all coming back to me now. Here's what Denzel Washington said while he was promoting his new movie with Spike Lee. He said, always keep your faith in God. Don't ever put your faith in men. I have hope in men, but I have faith in God. And it's okay to keep your hope alive because, like I said, but putting your faith in men, you're bound to be disappointed because, I mean, if you look at the way everything's going on in this world right now, obviously man's been really letting us all down. But like I said, I still keep my faith in God. That's what keeps me going. Because like I said, I pray every night. I pray before I eat. And it's like I even pray before I perform. And like I said, here's one thing. Another thing I will say this is that at the Oscars this year, Adrian Brody, when he took home Best Actor, the one thing he said that I agree with, he said this. Basically, and I'm paraphrasing, he said something like, even though we're living in a strange time right now, I still believe and have faith in better days. But it starts with us. And the way we start is to make sure no form of prejudice, hatred, bigotry, or racism ever goes unchecked.
Oh, yeah. Certainly so, and people definitely can be well intended, and people can always do the best that they can, but we also have to remember, and I mean, of course, I also don't want to make it seem like as if every human being is out there to get you, because that's not true either. But ultimately, we are people, and people are not perfect, and people are going to disappoint regardless if they're loved ones or not.
Yes, and another movie I remember. I mean, I'm showing my age right now, but I remember I actually watched this when I saw this movie in theaters when I was a kid with my dad. It was the Disney's Hunchback of Notre Dame back in '96, and I look back at that film, and that's probably one of the best Disney animated adaptations of an old folk tale that Disney's ever made to this day. I think there's even been talk of a live action remake. I actually wouldn't mind seeing that. But the reason why I'm bringing that up, and I feel like, because at the end there's a scene where like Quasimodo's talking to the villain, and the villain throughout the entire film was always saying how the world is cruel and whatnot. But he said, "You used to always tell me the world is cruel, but now I'm realizing the only thing cruel about this world is that there are people like you." So it's like, I don't believe the world is a cruel place. I believe there's just people in the world who are cruel. So I would say this is that the best thing to do is like, I would say this. Well, number one, be one of them. And number two, I would say you are who you associate with. Like, associate yourself with people who are generally good, positive people who want not just to see you succeed, who just want to do good in their life. But I always say all the time, instead of saying do good, be good. And what I mean by be good, like just be an all around good, generous, nice person. Because that energy attracts. And because anybody, there are plenty of people who are evil who do good things. I mean, period. I'm not, it doesn't make them a good person. They just did a good deed.
Yep.
So, but I was saying just being good, it just comes natural. Like there's certain things like I've done where just out of the kindness of my heart, and it just was natural to me. And when I did those things, people sometimes were just so blown away about it. And sometimes like they would, offer me things, and they always say there's something about you, something your aura or whatnot that just separates you. And I always tell them, I'll tell you what it is. It's just me being myself. That's what it is. It's like being an all-around good person. I feel like there are people in the world who are just naturally good people. Like,
yeah.
And just real quick, I'm gonna say this. This morning I went to the grocery store, and I was going to only buy a couple of things, but I actually didn't end up buying those things. There was a woman in front of me. She offered to pay for them, and I just said thank you. I feel like that was saying maybe that was the universe rewarding me. Maybe they know that I'm working hard. Who knows? But my point being is that she didn't have to do that, but I feel like she did it out of the kindness of her heart. And I think she's just, I don't think she was trying to do good. I think that was just who she is. She was just being an all around good person. And like I said, I only took home 3 items. And like I said, but she just offered to pay for them. I'm like, that's amazing.
Yeah. And and it says a lot about her as a person. And there is the saying that you reap what you sow, and oftentimes, people will use that in a negative context, but also people have to realize it's a lot more nuanced. It doesn't always mean in a negative context. It also can mean in a positive context. Like, say, for an example, if you ran into that person again, you definitely are going to be much more likely to want to go have a conversation with her, and you much are more likely are going to want to have that positive connection with her. And and then say if she's in a similar situation that you were in, and it's definitely very likely that you and then would want to help her out.
Yes, interestingly enough, there have been certain conversations that I've had at grocery stores with random people that also kind of like that helped me as I was going through something. Like I just told you, I had to bury a friend a few months ago. And
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I appreciate it. It's been a hard few months. Like I said, me and all of us, because we all used to work together at the aquarium. And me and my coworkers, we all went through it, and I'm pretty sure we're all coping with it differently. But
Yep.
but the one thing that I did say that keeps me going in times like these is that I never try to have that mindset like I'm special either. And what I mean by that is that there's nobody in this world who's uh, who hasn't gone through what I'm already going through. Now, I remember when it came to attending his funeral. I remember seeing his body. We got a chance to see his family, his siblings, his mother. After it was over, his mother gave all of us a really big hug. He seemed to be taking it pretty well. But my point being, what I'm saying, I try not to think that I'm special. I'm like, nobody in this world, I mean, there are plenty of people in this world who've gone through exactly what I'm going through, have gone through it, and in the future will go through it. And as sad as it is, like I said, the mother, she had to bury a child, and that is sad. But guess what? Throughout the dawn of time, throughout written history, there have been plenty of parents who had to bury a child, who are currently burying a child, and in the future will bury a child. Like, I pray to God that never has to be my parents. I pray to God that never has to be me. But guess what? We don't know what's going to happen in life. But my point being is having that mindset that I'm not special and that knowing that there's someone else who's gone through it. I just always remember that and know that guess what? Talk to people who've gone through it. Ask them, like, what did they do to help them move forward and help them, like, deal with the situation. And by doing so, I feel like that is what helps me, keeps me sane, and keeps me motivated, keeps me pushing. So and that's the message I do spread to other people. That, like I said, you just remember, just find people. I'm pretty sure there could be support groups, whatever the case may be. So that's just one thing I think about.
Yeah, and I mean, even though I may not be a parent, but I mean, I could argue that I could argue that my dog is my kid, but that's a whole separate topic to to some other time. But yeah, but I can only imagine like just how emotionally painful that would be, like for a parent to have to bury their own child, because usually it should be the other way around. It should be the parent like who goes, since that it's the parent like who's older, and so then you would naturally would think that it would be the parent who would go first, because it's just the circle of life. Yeah. And sadly, I've known a lot of parents myself who have had to bury their own kids, and that's something I would wish on nobody.
Same here. And like I said, I know people as well, and who've had to deal with the same thing. And like I said, I mean, it wasn't easy, but they also had to gravitate towards, like, people who've been through that situation. And one thing I would also say that I feel like could also help, I think of certain movies and certain characters and their dynamics. When you first watch them, you don't realize it because you're a kid watching, but as you get older, you realize what it is. Like, remember the original Karate Kid films?
Yep.
And remember the dynamics between Daniel and Mr. Miyagi?
Yeah.
I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. That really was a father-son relationship is what they had. Because in the movie, Daniel lost his father when he was a child. And Mr. Miyagi basically became his surrogate father figure, because like most children who lose their parents or never knew their parents, they had to collect parental figures. And Mr. Miyagi, he lost his wife and child when he was younger. Daniel became his surrogate son, because any fool could see that Mr. Miyagi loved Daniel like a son, and Daniel loved Mr. Miyagi like a father. So my point being is that you have to, like I said, when you go through something traumatizing like losing a child, sometimes I always say, sometimes you have to get the next best thing, which of course is finding parental figures, finding a surrogate child, a child you can be able to take in and be able, or if not even just take in, like be like a role model for them. Because I feel like that always helped as well. Because, like, I'm just gonna say this, even though, like I said, even though despite where he is right now, when I look at Diddy, and the dynamics between him and the late great Valletta Wallace, Biggie Small's mother. Throughout the years, up until the video him attacking Cassie came out, Valletta Wallace loved Diddy like a son. I'm pretty sure after she lost Big, they all gravitated towards each other. That became like her. He probably did become like her surrogate son right there. And Diddy admits that was his second mom. And I can only imagine what he's dealing with, not just being with him, but I'm pretty sure he's probably still grieving her loss as well. But my point being is that that's a perfect example of how, when you go through something traumatic like that, it's like you had to find the next best thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, trauma changes people in more ways than one. And, and it's in your hands if it's going to be either for the better or for the absolute worst.
Mm-hmm. And I'll say this, one thing I will say about trauma, there are certain things that are traumatic that as a child, I didn't even realize it was affecting me as an adult. But once I actually said it, it kind of helped improve my performances when it comes to like certain jobs I did. Because I'm going to say this, and you're getting exclusive. I never actually said this on camera before. When I work at a restaurant, and one thing my boss kind of complained about at one point, he complained the fact that I wasn't necessarily pitching alcohols as much as I should. And she often wondered why not? Because, like I said, I wasn't getting much as intense as I probably should have if I was. And I decided and realized one day how one of these traumatic events were affecting me and professionally. So I had to say it, and I had to get it off my chest. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, I was hanging out with my uncle and his best friend at a park. And then out of nowhere, my uncle's best friend dropped dead right in front of us. And you can only imagine how traumatic that was. Like, I was 5 or 6. I was a 5 or 6-year-old kid dealing with something like that. And I can only imagine how it affected my uncle, because I'm going to say this. Respect to my uncle, I love him. But after that, every time I ever saw him, he always had a drink in his hand. I feel like he never truly coped with that situation. And because of that, he kind of drank himself to an early grave.
Oh, I'm really sorry that you had to go through that, especially at such a young age. I mean, I never would wish trauma onto anybody, but especially at that young of an age. Oof.
Yeah, because I think I'm starting to realize now is that when that happened, it made me not want to drink all that much growing up. So I feel like, but when I finally admitted that to my boss, I felt like I was able to become better and a better server, and started ordering more drinks. And not only that, I'm kind of somewhat of a bartender training right now, so I'm kind of becoming better at even making drinks myself. So I realized it was one of those things where I just realized it was one of those things where I kind of like had it blocked out of my memory, but by doing so, by looking that out, I was able to become better as a server and whatnot. So that's something I had something to think about. So I say all the time, you don't heal what you don't reveal.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm so sorry to hear that you had to go through that. But the good thing is that you were able to turn a negative experience such as that, and then, and then you took it, and then you completely turned it upside down.
Yeah. But yeah, so nothing like that. I was exclusive. I never actually said that on camera before. So.
Wow. And I will say this: I definitely feel humbled knowing that you feel comfortable enough just for you to share it on this podcast. And I mean, you certainly didn't have to, but I certainly do feel comfortable. Sorry, I definitely do feel humbled knowing that you felt comfortable enough to do it on my show. And so And so, yeah, and so I just want to say, for your courage, I definitely give you major props.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, yeah, of course, anytime. So, with all that said, is there anything left that you would want to share with my audience before we wrap things up?
I'm gonna say this. The one thing I will say is that it doesn't matter what anybody says. It doesn't matter what anybody tells you. You are in control of your own fate. It's like
Yep.
there's the only destiny is the destiny that we make of ourselves. So whatever it is that you want to do in life, do it. Now, if it ends up succeeding, that's great. But if it doesn't end up working out, guess what? Pain beats regret every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Because like I said, I don't know where this song's gonna go. I don't know where my music's gonna go. I don't know where my film's gonna go. But the fact that I'm still gonna keep pushing and I'm gonna say, you know what? I'm going to live my life and do what I want to do and try to make my dreams come true the way I want. That is what that's all that matters. So I'll say that no matter what, I'm gonna say two things. I'm gonna end by saying two things. Number one, be yourself. That's your greatest power. And number two, believe in yourself. That's your greatest superpower. But yep, my new single, Danger Zone, out right now. Definitely gonna send you the link to be able to listen on Spotify, download on iTunes, check it out on YouTube. I'm gonna send you the link right after we get off. But Eric, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, certainly, of course, anytime.
Yep. Until next time.
Yeah, and I definitely would. And I definitely would love to have you back on sometime.
Always a pleasure.
All right.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. Stay scared and stay Cineified.